The one verse in Genesis that changes your entire perspective. Among the many powerful passages in Genesis, one verse stands like a quiet pillar holding up the entire story of salvation. God created man in his image. In the image of God he created him. Male and female he created them. Genesis 1:27. At first glance, this verse may seem simple, almost poetic in its repetition. Yet within Catholic theology, it contains a truth so profound. It transforms how we see ourselves, others, and even God. To understand why this verse changes everything, we must begin with what it means to be created in the image of God. The Catholic Church teaches that the human person is not merely a product of chance or biological evolution alone. While the Church does not reject scientific understanding, it firmly proclaims that every human soul is directly created by God. The image refers primarily to our spiritual soul, our intellect and free will through which we can know and love our Creator. This truth reshapes our perspective on identity in a world that constantly pressures us to define ourselves by achievement, appearance, or social approval. Genesis 1:27 declares something radically different. Your worth is not earned. It is given. You are valuable not because of what you accomplish, but because of who created you. Before you spoke your first word or made your first decision, you bore the imprint of divine love. This verse also changes how we understand human dignity. Catholic social teaching is built upon the foundation that every human life is sacred from conception to natural death. Why? Because every person reflects the image of God. The unborn child, the elderly, the sick, the poor, the stranger, each carries this sacred mark. To harm human dignity is, in a mysterious way, to dishonor the one whose image that person reflects. Genesis 1:27 also speaks directly to the relationship between man and woman. Male and female he created them. The Catholic Church sees this not merely as a biological statement but as a theological revelation. Humanity reflects God not only individually but communally. God is not solitude. God is Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, an eternal communion of love. Likewise, men and women are created for relationship, for communion, for self-giving love. Marriage, in Catholic teaching, becomes a living sign of this divine love, mirroring the faithful and fruitful love of God Himself. When we view ourselves through this lens, insecurity begins to lose its power. Comparison fades. Envy weakens. If every person is uniquely crafted in God's image, then diversity is not a threat. It is part of the beauty of creation. The gifts you have are intentional. The personality you carry is not accidental. Even your limitations can become places where grace enters. This verse also reorients our understanding of sin and redemption. If we are made in God's image, why is the world so broken? The Catholic understanding of original sin explains that while the image of God remains in humanity, it has been wounded. The harmony between God and humanity, between man and woman, and even within our own hearts was disrupted. Yet the image was not erased. This is crucial. Even after the fall, humanity retains its dignity and capacity for grace. The fullness of this truth is revealed in Jesus Christ. The New Testament calls Christ the image of the invisible God. In Him, we see what humanity was always meant to be. Through His life, death, and resurrection, Christ restores what was wounded. The sacraments, especially baptism, renew us in that divine image, strengthening our ability to live as sons and daughters of God. Thus, Genesis 1:27 is not merely about the past, it points forward to salvation. Another profound shift this verse creates is in how we view suffering. If we are made in God's image, then suffering does not erase our value in moments of weakness, illness, or failure. Our dignity remains intact. Catholic spirituality often emphasizes that even Christ, the perfect image of the Father, chose to suffer. Therefore, suffering united with Christ can become redemptive rather than meaningless. Furthermore, Genesis 1:27 challenges modern individualism. Being made in God's image implies responsibility. We are stewards of creation, called to reflect God's goodness in the world. Our choices matter. Our actions either mirror God's love or distort it. This awareness elevates daily life. Work becomes participation in God's creative power, acts of mercy become reflections of divine compassion, forgiveness becomes an imitation of God's mercy. This single verse also transforms how we approach prayer if we are made in God's image. Then prayer is not a desperate attempt to reach a distant being. It is communion between creator and creature, a return to the one whose likeness we bear. Deep within every human heart is a longing for God because we are fashioned according to his design. Saint Augustine famously wrote that our hearts are restless until they rest in God, a statement that flows naturally from Genesis 1:27. Perhaps most importantly, this verse combats despair. When society reduces human beings to statistics, productivity, or social categories, Genesis reminds us of something eternal. No matter how chaotic the world becomes, no matter how loud the voices of confusion grow, there is a truth written into our very being: we belong to God. In the Catholic vision, Genesis is not simply an ancient story. It is the foundation of anthropology, morality, and spirituality. Genesis 1:27 is the cornerstone of that foundation. It tells us who we are, why we matter, and what we are called to become. When you truly absorb this verse, everything shifts. You see strangers differently, you treat your own body with greater respect, you approach relationships with deeper reverence, you recognize that your life has purpose beyond temporary success. The one verse in Genesis that changes your entire perspective is not loud or dramatic. It is simple, steady, and revolutionary. You are made in the image of God. And once you understand that, you can never see yourself or the world the same way again. Thank you for watching the video. If you found this video helpful, please like and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next video. Goodbye.